Shalom, how's everyone doing? Today's day 33 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We'll be learning Siman Seif Gimel. Let's begin. Im yesh tsoa al besaro, if somebody has tsoa on his skin, afa pisha mechusah b'vgadav, even though it's covered with his clothes, asur b'divrei kedusha, it's asur to say devarim shebekdusha. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, kol asmo say tomarna Hashem yichamocha. All my limbs will say Hashem, who is like you. What do we learn from this pasuk? Va'inan sheyu chulam nikim, that all our limbs have to be clean when we say devarim shebekdusha. V'yish mikilan bezed, there are people who are mekel about this, aval hanachon lahachmir, but it's best to be machmir. Ve'im yesh lo afilu ma'at tzoa b'fiat tabas. Let's say somebody even has a little bit of tzoa from the hole that it comes out of. Afa pisha himechusa, even though it's covered. L'chule yama lo mahani, everyone agrees it doesn't help. That you still cannot say devarim shebekdusha. Mipnei shebemekoma, because in that place the hole that it comes out from, zu hamasa murba, it's especially disgusting. Okay, and we'll skip the parentheses. What's the Kitzur talking about here? As we've discussed, that if somebody's in the presence of tzoa, he's not allowed to say devarim shebekdusha. But we said there's a heter for that. Just cover it up. Right? Once you cover it up, we look at it like it's not there, and then you could say devarim shebekdusha. So the question is here, it's on your skin, but it's covered up. Does that help? Does that help as a covering? So really, there's a discussion in the Gemara in Brachos Taf Chafei. There are two shitas. There's shita of Rav Chisda who says aser. No, you can't. Right? Even though it's covered, it's still aser to say devarim shebekdusha. Why? Because of this pasuk. Kol atzmo say tomarna Hashem yichamocha. That all our limbs have to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? All our limbs have to be clean from tzoa when we're saying devarim shebekdusha. It doesn't help to just cover it up because the limbs themselves are not clean. That's shitas Rav Chisda. And then we have another shita. We have shitas Rav Huna who says it's fine. He doesn't accept that this pasuk. He doesn't accept that we learn anything from this pasuk of Kol asmo say tomarna. He actually has a different pasuk. The pasuk says Kol haneshama ta'aloka aluka, right? Which Pashut means that every neshama, all Klal Yisrael, they all have neshama, so all going to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But neshama could also mean neshima. It could also mean a breath. So it just means that when we praise Hashem with our breath, which is what do we breathe from? We breathe from our mouth. We breathe from our nose. So those things have to be clean. Those things have to be clean, but it's not saying that he holds the rest of the body doesn't have to be clean. So according to Rav Huna, actually, even if there's tzoa on your skin, as long as it's covered, you actually are okay to say devarim shebekdusha. So the question is, how do we paskin? So it's interesting. If you look in most of the Rishonim, you got the Rosh, the Rif, and the Rambam. They all say we paskin like Rav Huna, that if there's tzoa on your skin and it's covered, you actually could say devarim shebekdusha. Why do they hold that? Probably for a very simple reason. That we have machlokes between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Rav Huna was actually Rav Chisda's Rebbe. So therefore, obviously, we're going to pass on like Rav Huna, who holds that you could say devarim shebekdusha with tzoa on your skin. Who paskins like Rav Chisda that it's aser? So we have a few people, the Orzura or Ben Chananel. So it's interesting because if you look in Shulchan Aruch quotes both shitas. He says Yish matirim likros. Some people say it's fine. Some people say it's aser. But if you look at the Mishabura says it's better to be machmir like these machmir shitos, because even if you look in the Rambam himself holds that you could say devarim shebekdusha if there's tzoa on you as long as it's covered. But even so, the Rambam ends off kama gaonim. There's many shitos who hold that it's aser and v'chein ra'ay lasos, and it's better to follow those shitos. Fine. But as the Magen Avram points out, that the whole problem is, let's say you have tzoa on your skin, you cover it up with your clothes, that's going to be problematic l'chadchila. But what would not be problematic? The Magen Avram says, let's say that tzoa is not on your skin, that tzoa is actually on the inside of your clothes, right? So what happens? The tzoa is on the inside of your clothes. It's not on your skin. So we don't have this problem that all our limbs have to be clean when we think HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we're saying devarim shebekdusha. So that would actually be okay. So the Magen Avram says that's interesting because it goes against the Gemara, right? There's a Gemara that talks about if somebody stepped in tzoa, right? Somebody was walking along the street, there was tzoa on the ground, he stepped in tzoa, right? There's a machlokas in the Gemara if you can now say devarim shebekdusha. But Shulchan Aruch paskins, it's aser. He says, right, you put your shoe on soa, now there's soa on your shoe, you're not allowed to say Dvarim Shebekdusha, right? And just to point out, right, the Aruch HaShulchan says, like, yeah, this actually is something that could come up, right? Let's say you go to the bathroom's not so clean, there might be soa on the ground, and if you step in soa, then it's a big problem. But the big question is, the Magen Avraham just said that if you have soa on your clothes, and it's covered, it's on the inside of your clothes, so it's covered, there should not be a problem of saying Dvarim Shebekdusha. So it's true in this case, right? Somebody steps in soa, and now he wants to say brachos. What's the problem? The soa is completely covered, right? On one side it's covered by his shoe, and the other side is covered by the floor that he's standing on. So why should it be a problem? So the Magen Avraham says there's two problems. One, he says that it's unclear what he's saying, but we'll explain it. That his shoe is part of his body. Why is his shoe part of the body? So the Shulchan Aruch Harav explains that when this guy walked into the tzoa, basically his shoe helped do that, right? What walked into the tzoa? His shoe. So his shoe was like a main factor when it came to walking into the tzoa. So since the shoe played such a major role in walking into the tzoa, we're going to say that's going to be a problem of saying Dvarim Shebekdusha while you're wearing the shoe. As opposed to a case where that tzoa just touched your clothes, the clothes didn't really play like such a big factor of you actually physically touching the tzoa, it just happened to have been there. Therefore, that would not be a problem of saying Dvarim Shebekdusha. That's one difference between shoes and other clothes. The other difference the Magen Avraham says is that shoes are worse because shoes sometimes are not covered by the ground, right? When you walk, for those few seconds that your foot's in the air, the tzoa is not covered now. But let's say you're saying Dvarim Shebekdusha while it still doesn't help. As opposed to a case of the clothes, when the clothes are covering it, that would help. Fine. So that is that. The next thing the Kitzur talks about is he says that according to every single sheet in the world, right, even though as we've clarified that me'ikr din b'shas adchak, at least we could say Dvarim Shebekdusha with tzoa on our skin as long as it's covered, because we really do hold like that shita. But if the tzoa is in the actual hole that it comes out from, that is worse, and we will not allow it. Why does he say that? So that's a Gemara Maseches Yuma. Right? Rav Papa says tzoa b'mkoma aser. That's what he says. Tzoa in the hole, it's going to be aser. So the Gemara says, what's the case? Right? If you could see it, obviously it's aser. If you can't, it's so far up the hole, we're not going to say that's a problem. So he says that you see it when you're sitting down. Right? That's when you could see it. So he says, isn't this just the same machlokes about the case of tzoa on your skin? So he says, no, this is a totally different machlokes, because when it's in the hole that it comes out from, it's nafesh zuham. It's like very disgusting. And there's a couple ways to learn that. Right? Rashi says, what does it mean it's very disgusting? Because while tzoa is still in the hole, it hasn't reached the area, he says. It hasn't gone past the hole. So therefore, it has a very bad smell. Once it goes past the hole, then the smell dissipates a bit. That's how Rashi learns it. Rabbeinu Chananah learns it a little differently. He says, well, it's still in the hole. It looks as if you're still going to the bathroom. So obviously that would be a problem of saying Dvarim Shebekdusha, like, Imamish looks like you're still going to the bathroom. So therefore, if you look at least even in the Mishnah Berurah, he says this is something we have to be careful about. Right? Because he's saying there's no shita that holds that if tzoa is still in the hole, you could say Dvarim Shebekdusha. Therefore, a person has to be very careful to clean the hole after he uses the bathroom. He says as follows. He says, he has to make sure that the hole is very clean. You surely clean it with water, or barok, or with spit. Right? There shouldn't even be a little tzoa there, because even if there's a little tzoa there, since we have this idea of nefesh zuhama, it's very disgusting over there, one cannot say Dvarim Shebekdusha. However, the question is, how crazy does somebody have to be about this? Right? The Stipler has a few letters to various B'nai Torah, B'nai Yeshivas, that they would spend so much time cleaning themselves after they use the bathroom because they were so careful not to have any little bit in the hole, that they would end up missing Tefillah B'tzibur, or they'd end up missing Tefillah B'zman even. So that's not good, unless that's something we have to do. So there's the Shalosh Shuvah of Chaim, he says, let's see what the Gemara says. Right? There's a Gemara in Maseches Shabbos that we've quoted before that back in the times of the Gemara, they used to wipe themselves with stones, and the Gemara is very clear that they would wipe themselves with 3 stones. They would do one wipe with a stone, another wipe with another stone, another wipe with another stone. So the Divrei Chaim basically says, like, you think they cleaned everything by just wiping themselves with 3 stones? Probably not. Probably not. So he wants to say that, even though that there's this hakbara that in the whole that there shouldn't be any tzoa, after you wipe 3 times, maybe we assume that there's no tzoa there. All right, what's the yesod behind that? So if you look at the Derech HaChaim, he explains. He says this idea that it's asur to say Devarim Shebekdusha if there's tzoa in the whole, that's only if there's actual tzoa there. But sometimes it's just lichluch ba'alma, right? Sometimes it's just like, like the aftermath of using the bathroom, that there's not like, and then you wipe, and then there might be a little, there might be a little lichluch there might be a little dirt, but that probably doesn't have a shem tzoa, right? Because at that point, halach harech, it doesn't smell that much. Hukein mulizeya, it's just like something that's like filled with sweat. So therefore, maybe a person, it's not clear how much a person has to get clean. He just has to, try his best, and that would probably be okay. Just to end off, there's a mechudesh tika Magen Avram, right? Until this whole halacha about having the tzoa in the hole, the pashut pshat is that like if you have tzoa in the hole, that you personally can't say Devarim Shebekdusha. But if you're standing near somebody who has tzoa in his hole, like that should be okay, right? It's covered, like you don't smell it, that should be okay. But there's a Magen Avram that says no. The Magen Avram says that a person should be machmer not to say Devarim Shebekdusha if he's close by to like kids, because kids obviously aren't going to wipe themselves well, and therefore it would be this problem of tzoa b'mkoma, of tzoa in the hole. Okay, this Magen Avram is not really accepted by Allah. If you look in the Be'er Heitev says the Magen Avram made a big mistake. But just to quote that sheet. Okay,